Shastra. Here, the challenge name is maximum wealth. The problem statement is as follows. In a kingdom, the royal treasure is represented by an array of integers, some of which are negative, reducing the total wealth. A magician discovered a powerful magic that can flip the signs of two adjacent integers, potentially increasing the total sum. Your task is to help the magician find the maximum sum possible by performing the flipping of sign any number of times. The input format is as follows. The first line contains the number of test cases, basically the number of test cases in the file, and in each test case the first line represents the size of the array and the second line is the element inside the array. Here in each file the test case can vary from 1 to 10,000 and the size of the array is minimum 2 and the maximum is 10 to the power 7. The elements inside the array have a varying range from negative 10 to the power 7 to positive 10 to the power 7. The output format for each test case, we need to output the maximum possible sum of array. That is, we need to output an integer which will contain the maximum sum of array. Let's just look at sample input 0. Here we have two test cases in the file. So this is the first test case, this is the second test case. Here the length of array is 3, so here we have 3 elements. Now as the question says that we can flip the adjacent integers, right? So if we flip these two numbers, okay, so it will become plus 1 and plus 1 and this will become minus 1. So our sum would be 1, and if we flip these two numbers, so it will become minus 1 plus 1 and plus 1, so our sum would be 1. So here if we flip either of them there is no effect. But note the thing that these are odd number of negative number. We'll come to it later. Here let's just look at second. We have 3 elements inside the array, 1 2 3, all are positive, so we don't need to flip any of them since the sum of all the elements is already maximum. Now let's look at one more case. Here we have a negative number at the beginning and then ending of an array. If we flip these two elements, then our sum would become 2. Before flipping, the sum was minus 16. So yeah, we are maximizing the sum. Let's just look, can we further maximize the sum? If we flip negative 1 and 1, then the sum would remain as it is. So we need to flip a number which will maximize the sum. So if we flip 1 and negative 10, it will become 1 to negative 1 and minus 10 to 10. So our sum will become 20. Now if we keep on flipping the elements, you will see that eventually these negative ones have come together, and as since these negative numbers have come together, we can simply flip both of them and our sum would become 24, which is the maximum sum that we can achieve. So basically if we have even number of negative numbers, okay, so if we have even number of negative number, like there were two even number of negative number, let us consider this is minus 1 and this is minus 1. So if we flip both of them, it will become 10 and this will become plus 1 and this will become plus 1 and this will become plus 10. So the maximum sum that we can achieve if we have even number of uh, negative numbers is the absolute sum of the array elements. So absolute sum of the array elements would be plus 10, 1, 1, 1, 1 and plus 10, that would be 24. Now let's just look at one more case where the number of negative number is odd. Here we have the number of negative number as odd, like this is minus 10, minus 9 and minus 7. So we have odd number of negative number. In this case, we need to find the minimum absolute value inside the array. Since if we flip this number, eventually there would be one number left which will be having a negative sign. We need to take care of that number. Like if we see this example, like this is the example that we look at, you will see that if we negate these two number, it will give us negative 1. The negative 1 is left here. If we flip these two number, the negative 1 is left here. Okay, so in this case we need to find which number to keep negative. So here the number would be 1. The reason behind, we would be finding absolute minimum value. The reason behind I am saying absolute is, if we find minimum value, the minimum value would be probably minus 10, but we need to find absolute minimum value. So ignoring the sign, the minimum value would be 1. So we need to subtract the minimum value times 2. The absolute sum would be minus 10, 1, 9 and 7. That would be 27, right? So the absolute sum would be 27. Since we have added this 1 already, so we need to subtract it 2 times, like 2 into absolute minimum value. So that would be, here the absolute minimum value is 1, so it would be 25. So this is solution for this problem. Here I have a function solve. N is the integer which represents the size of array. A is the array itself. T here is the number of test cases. We need to call this solve function T times. Um, we need to have a few variables like the sum value, which will store the absolute sum, and the negative number count. As we discussed earlier, if the negative number count is even, we return the sum value, and if the negative number count is odd, we need to subtract the absolute minimum value. So let's just make a variable negative number count, and let's just run a loop on the array elements for num in a sum well plus equals to, remember we need to add the absolute values, not the value itself, and we need to check if the number is less than 0. If the number is less than 0, we increment the negative number count, so that would be plus equals to 1. And now as we have the negative number count and the absolute sum value, we just need to see whether the negative number count is even or odd. So negative count percent 2 equals to 0, then we simply return the sum well. Else what we need to do, we need to find the absolute minimum value. So absolute minimum value is equals to minimum. Since absolute, so we need to use the absolute function here, num for num in a, and as we have found the absolute minimum value, just need to subtract 2 times from the sum well. The reason behind of 2, as we are adding the negative absolute value here, so we need to subtract it one more time. So sum well minus 2 into absolute min value, and now let's just run the code. As you can see, and just submit it, and yes, our all the test cases are passed.